Be a part of the best pro wrestling podcast today by supporting the Going In Raw Patreon. You can enjoy access to the live taping of the show, exclusive merchandise, and patron-only episodes, and so much more. Support Going In Raw today. Click the link in the description. Hey friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
So this past week saw the 14-year anniversary of John Cena's WWE debut. And given that we're about to see a lot more debuts with all the NXT call-ups thanks to the WWE draft coming up, we thought we'd take a look at the biggest impacts made by debuting wrestlers. The Shield! The trio of Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Roman Reigns is another act that WWE had big plans for, and their bet has more than paid off. All three men have held the WWE Championship over the past few years.
And their debut was a major one, coming at Survivor Series 2012, helping CM Punk retain his WWE Championship by powerbombing Ryborg through the announce table.
Ryborg was definitely in the impact zone at that point, stupid.
Yeah, he was. Their entrance was unusual, arriving through the crowd with ring gear that looked more like SWAT team uniforms and proper wrestling attire.
And they were the perfect team, each member having skill sets that complemented the other two. They were booked dominant from their very first appearance and haven't slowed down since.
Well, Roman Reigns has had to slow down for 30 days or so.
Well, ungodly amounts of cocaine to do just that.
You can't say that, Steve. Come on.
It's a joke. Come on, everybody knows Roman just loves weed.
So irresponsible.
I love to smoke weed.
We're journalists now. We can't say that stuff.
All right. I retract my statement. It was a joke. But why wouldn't he love weed? Everybody loves weed. Undertaker! Okay, so his debut was all right in that he was booked strong from the get-go. But let's face it, having the $1 Million Man announce you as a mystery member of his Survivor Series team with no other context doesn't really warrant more than a passing mention. The Undertaker character itself could have easily fizzled if not for the great work of Mark Calloway. Taz! Taz came in white hot to the WWE from ECW as a mystery opponent against an undefeated at the time Kurt Angle at Madison Square Garden, where a fever-pitched crowd chanted, "We want Taz! We want Taz!" Taz actually had a pretty decent WWE career, but it was cut short due to injuries, and that's pretty much the only reason he's only an honorable mention here, because of his shortened time with the WWE.
Booker T! The WCW legend made an immediate impact when he came to the WWE to kick off the Invasion story by putting Stone Cold Steve Austin through a table at King of the Ring and then scissor kicking Vince McMahon the next night on Raw.
The Big Show! Well, the Giant came through the ring to destroy Stone Cold on behalf of Vince McMahon at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This was a massive turn of the tide of the Monday Night War, as the Giant was one of WCW's biggest acts, and say what you will about him now, he's still one of the bigger moneymakers in WWE. John Cena! John Cena's open challenge was preceded by Kurt Angle's open challenge by a good 13 to 14 years or so. So it's fitting that he made his debut during one of these segments back in 2002.
Angle himself had just debuted his bald head after his hair versus hair match against Edge. Then Cena answers his open challenge, sauntering to the ring, looking weird without jorts. He sported trunks, so with John Cena, dick and balls were on display for the world to see.
Yeah, everybody was pointing at his dick and balls. Look at that guy's dick and balls. His intensity was a bit cartoonish as well, but it was obvious he was reaching for that brass ring Vince is always talking about. He started out the match strong, catching Angle off guard, and after a few close calls, he got pinned by the Olympic gold medalist.
It was a great first impression for WWE fans, except for the tights, which showed off Cena's dick and balls. Those would eventually be replaced when he adopted his rapper angle.
Considering how underwhelming most wrestlers' debuts can be, it's obvious WWE knew they had big plans in place for Cena, as giving him a debut with as big a splash as this wasn't par for the course.
Unlike wrestlers showing off their dick and balls in tights, everybody does
that. That happens all the time.
The Nexus! Wade Barrett and the other trainees from the early contract competition days of NXT made a massive statement when they invaded Raw and destroyed John Cena and the entire set. Hell, Daniel Bryan nearly killed Justin Roberts by choking him with his tie. That's a shoot too, Steve. He got fired for that shit.
It shows how seriously WWE takes attempted murder. They bring a guy back after 2 weeks.
Something like that. Kevin Owens! Owens did more for the NXT brand when he answered John Cena's great US Championship Open Challenge than any 5-star match could. When he raised his NXT title high in the air and then sucker punched Cena and gave him a devastating pop-up powerbomb, he introduced the world to one of the best pure heels the company has seen in years.
Kane! The lore between The Undertaker and his brother Kane could have been so cheesy, but thanks to the work of Taker, Paul Bearer, and Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, it ended up being a feud for the ages.
It started with Paul Bearer having a line with Mankind, getting into Taker's head by telling him his long-thought-dead brother, Kane, was still alive.
This carried on for a while, and then during the very first Hell in a Cell match, which took place at the awesomely named Bad Blood in Your House, Kane made a highly dramatic debut, bathed in red light to a stunned Undertaker.
Then he dropped Taker on his head with a tombstone piledriver, and a feud that lasted over a year began. There hadn't really been a story told like this before, and Kane has had some seriously impressive longevity, even having wrestled this past week on Raw.
Yeah, and Kane is apparently considering a run for public office in his home state of Tennessee pretty soon.
I am assuming you mean corporate Kane.
No, I mean insurance salesman Kane. Google Glenn Jacobs Insurance. It's amazing. He gives out championship belts to like the top insurance salesmen, like car dealerships, I think. Scott Hall! The entire wrestling industry was shaken to its very core, Larson, when a guy that looked exactly like Razor Ramon, wearing a denim vest and jeans, made his way through the Hillbilly Nitro crowd on May 27, 1996, during a match between the Mauler and Steve Dahl.
Who?
The Mauler and Steve Dahl.
Those sound like kayfabe corner names I should know because I used Steve Dahl in kayfabe corner once.
I know, I remember.
Hall proceeded to give an ominous threat. You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
That's actually really good. But it was an obvious and, let's face it, genius way of making it look like someone from the WWF had invaded WCW. It was so obvious, in fact, that WCW got sued for it, and Hall had to kind of drop his Razor accent, and the company had to start referring to him by his real name.
Soon after, Kevin Nash came in, then the NWO was born when Hulk Hogan joined them at Bash at the Beach 96. The Monday Night Wars, which kicked off a year earlier with the debut of Nitro, had suddenly seen a sea change.
And it all started with the arrival of the bad guy in his amazing denim vest and matching jeans. People don't wear that kind of shit anymore, man. That's sad to me.
People didn't generally wear it back then either. Wrestlers just wear weird shit.
Fanny packs.
Fanny packs.
Chris Jericho! Back in 1997 and 1998, WCW mid-Carter Chris Jericho was quickly becoming one of the most popular wrestlers in the company, albeit one held back from reaching main event status thanks to the plethora of old-timer egos at the top.
The NWO had a vice grip on the top of the card, making it virtually impossible for anyone not associated with the group or related storyline to even sniff at the big gold belt.
Instead of building around the strong roster of younger wrestlers like Raven, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, and Jericho, they relied on bringing in old saggy guys like Roddy Piper to vie for the title. So the really good stuff was centered around the US title and the cruiserweight belts.
What about the TV title?
No, that was exclusively held by Lord Steven Regal and Stevie Ray.
And Disco Inferno.
How could I forget Disco Inferno?
Jericho in particular had carved out a big fan following of Jerichoholics with a sharp wit and innovative mix of in-ring styles, built from years wrestling for a wide variety of promotions the world over.
So when WCW created Goldberg, and Jericho pitched an angle with him and was shot down, he decided enough was enough and left WCW for the WWE.
Internet dirt sheets had just become a hot thing during that time, so when strange vignettes started airing featuring a countdown to the millennium, which was slated to hit zero right around the time Jericho's no compete clause ran out, most fans got savvy to what was happening.
And sure enough, smack dab in the middle of The Rock's promo, the countdown clock appeared as it ticked down to zero. And when it did, Jericho's iconic WWE theme song kicked in, his name flashed over his entrance video, and there he was, man, drink him in.
He then engaged in a verbal back and forth with The Rock that proved he could hang with the best the WWE had to offer.
Of course, Jericho eventually became one of the WWE's most decorated stars and still features high in the card whenever he takes time from touring with his band Fozzy and rejoins the WWE.
His debut was best ever, and he's still giving us the gift of Jericho. Drink it in, man.
Drink it in, man.
So those are the best wrestler debuts. Be sure to let us know which ones we missed in the comments.
Oh, Big Show!
Pull it together, Steve. Come on.
Okay. The Big Show! Well, the Giant came out from through the ring. The Giant came out from through.
Came out from through the ring. Well, singing his theme song.
Well, that'd be great. Well,
choke it.
Oh, good. Well.